This week, we're trying the national airline of Italy, ITA. We'll be catching a couple of flights from Egypt to France, sitting up front in what might be the nicest business class seat on a narrow-body jet. But more importantly, we'll touch on what ITA is, what went wrong at Alitalia, and what the future holds for Italy's new national carrier. I won't spoil it all now, but it's not looking particularly good.
Oh, have you ever set an alarm for 1 a.m. in the morning?
Flight's at 4:30 in the morning. I went to bed last night at 8 p.m. I'm not feeling terrible. Alright, let's go. Okay, Cairo might be the most blatantly corrupt and sketchy airport I've ever been to. Anyway, let's go and check in.
I don't want to harp on too much about Cairo or Cairo Airport here. I was only in the city for 2 days, but let me just do a quick PSA. Cairo and, well, the airport has some of the most scammy and hostile tip-demanding culture I've ever experienced. It's not just people trying to sell you stuff or help you and then asking you for a tip. These people will chase you down and hassle you for money. No amount of money will ever be enough, and it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth and had me a bit on edge the whole time. Here's a picture of me on a camel at the pyramids. I basically got scammed here. I never intended to ride a camel, but one guy started talking to me, and then the next thing I knew, I was on a camel. I should have been more skeptical, my bad, but this thing cost me $40, and that was after I basically had to tell them to bugger off and walk away. I guess the thing that annoys me here is just how opaque and sketchy it feels. If they just offered a 5-minute camel ride and a headscarf for $40 or $50, then I'd happily pay for that. I'd have a great time, get a cool picture, and then move on. Instead, I felt scammed and annoyed for 15 minutes. Basically, if you're coming here, just be vigilant, or just bring lots of cash and just tip everyone too much, have a good time. I don't know, I guess that's an option. But finally, the airport. Generally, the actual security and airline employees are fine. They don't demand tips or anything like that, but the airport is full of these porters that will offer to help you with your bags. The thing here is, they don't just offer. At one of the security checkpoints, a guy just grabbed my bags and helped me load them onto one of the baggage scanners. I told him no like 5 times, but he just did it anyway and then started to shake me down for a tip. It just makes you feel a bit uncomfortable. Now, I do have a few more opinions on Cairo Airport, but I'll stop here because I want to go back to Egypt. That might sound like a ridiculous statement. They're not going to watch this video and then attack me for sharing my experiences, right? Well, probably not, but it has happened in the past. Ben from 1 Mile at a Time, a great blog I've been reading for years, had just this experience. He wrote a blog post titled Cairo Airport, Is There a Worse Major Airport? In it, he just documented his experiences of Cairo Airport. It's honest and not particularly scandalous. You'd think Egypt's Minister of Aviation would either just ignore it or maybe take some of the feedback on board and try to improve the airport. But no, they published a full statement claiming that Ben's accusations were unjustified and without basis. They went on to claim that his whole trip to Cairo was to undermine Cairo Airport. They also, rather creepily, published CCTV footage of Ben wandering around the airport. This was in an attempt to track his journey through the airport and show that he actually had a very quick and easy time. This was an absolutely absurd response from the Egyptian government, in my opinion. I almost just want to roast them just to get some free CCTV clips. These go hard, but also I do want to visit Egypt again. It's a very interesting place, and well, they do have some of the cheapest premium travel fares in the world, but we'll get to that shortly.
I was a tad worried there'd be queues, but there's practically nobody here. It is so sketchy though. Cairo Airport. Oh, downstairs. Okay. Okay, that was not the right Al-Nut Lounge, whatever it is. ITA? Yes. That lounge was, actually was surprisingly probably nice. Here's the flight situation. People are starting to line up. Gotta get eyes on the plane, you know.
Before we get on board this flight, let's answer the first big question here. What is ITA Airways? ITA is the national airline of Italy. It was founded in 2020 as the successor to the bankrupt flag-carrying airline for Italy, Alitalia. It's not merely a reorganized Alitalia. The EU made sure of that. It's a whole new airline. That being said, they acquired a lot of the Alitalia assets, and in reality, it is in many ways Alitalia 2.0. Well, maybe 3.0. To really understand this story, we need to dive into the history of Alitalia. Alitalia was Italy's flag-carrying airline, founded in 1946. It was an emblem of national pride for the country. Its very name, Ali, meaning wings in Italian, and well, Italia, Italy, literally stood for the wings of Italy. I won't go too deep here, but Alitalia for much of its history was state-owned and was largely a loss-making airline. Its first few decades were a success. They were a joint partnership between British European Airways, this would later become British Airways, and the Italian government. They were launched just after the Second World War and helped connect Italy to the world. In the 60s, they became the first European airline to transition to an entirely jet fleet and also became the official carrier for the Pope. They were becoming a prestigious international carrier. It was around the late 80s, early 90s when things started to really go wrong for the airline. There's a few factors that caused all of this. Firstly, and most prominently, was the EU's move towards a single aviation market. This was the move to remove national air barriers between European countries, and it opened the door for low-cost carriers. Most prominently, this has led to the creation and success of airlines like Ryanair and EasyJet, and it also led to much of the consolidation that we've seen with legacy carriers in Europe. Today, there's basically the European Big Three. We've got IAG, they're the parent company of British Airways, Iberia, Aer Lingus, etc. There's the Air France KLM group. They are the parent company of, well, Air France and KLM, but they also have minority interests in a whole bunch of other airlines, most prominently SAS. And then there's Lufthansa. They've acquired or have stakes in Austrian Airlines, Swiss Airlines, Brussels Airlines, Air Baltic, Eurowings, and well, now ITA. We'll come back to that one though. The second big factor in Alitalia's financial struggles was their strong political ties and powerful labor unions. They had a significantly higher cost base when compared to the low-cost carriers, and any move to reduce headcount led to both union-organized strikes and political involvement. It's estimated that between 1974 and 2014, the airline lost upwards of 7.4 billion euros, with much of those losses being funded by the Italian taxpayers. And this is the thing, the Italianness of the airline, the national pride, led the government to just continue funding their losses for decades and shielded them from having to implement any major change. There was a plan in 1995, after their financial challenges really started to come to light, to merge the airline with KLM. This could have led to a different Big Three, but of course this never eventuated, and Alitalia continued losing money for the next decade. In September of 2004, Alitalia found itself in dire financial straits, with management admitting that they lacked the funds to cover employee salaries, but beyond the end of the month. This crisis led to the Berlusconi government, remember him, providing a 400 million euro bridge loan to the airline. The situation was so severe at the time that the Italian stock market regulator, Consob, required that Alitalia report their debt and cash positions monthly to ensure that they were not doing any insolvent trading. Up until this point, Alitalia was still a national icon, and whilst the government wasn't enthusiastically supporting the loss-making airline, they were nonetheless supporting them whenever needed. Things changed in 2006 when the European Union stepped in.
Bloody European Union.
They forbid the Italian government from injecting any further capital into the failing airline. This pushed the Italian government towards trying to privatize the airline in early 2007. The issue here, though, was that Alitalia was a massive cash-burning machine, and while the government wanted guarantees from any acquirers that all jobs would be kept, domestic routes would remain in place, and the Italian identity of the brand would continue. Whilst they had some interest, as you could probably guess, nobody submitted a bid here. They tried again in late 2007. 3 parties submitted a bid, with the Air France KLM group, they'd merged in 2004, being selected as the winner by the Alitalia board. This bid was contingent on significant restructuring, including approximately 2,100 job cuts. The incumbent government, led by Prime Minister Romano Prodi, appeared inclined to accept this deal as a pragmatic solution to Alitalia's woes. But Bunga man Silvio Berlusconi,
Complimenti, siete così bravi che mi viene voglia di invitarvi al Bunga Bunga.
Then leader of the opposition and campaigning for a return to power, vehemently opposed this sale to a foreign entity. He framed the issue as one of national pride, railing against the prospect of Alitalia losing its Italianity. Amidst this politically charged atmosphere and a failure to secure agreement with Alitalia's powerful unions on the proposed job cuts, the Air France KLM group withdrew its offer in April of 2008. Following his victory shortly after in the 2008 general election, Berlusconi moved to implement his preferred Italian solution. This involved the formation of a consortium of Italian investors to acquire the viable assets of Alitalia and merge them with Air One, another struggling Italian airline. The plan went ahead with the original Alitalia being declared bankrupt. This new consortium of investors acquired the Alitalia brand and its most valuable assets, as well as Air One. This left the massive debts and liabilities with the old bankrupt shell of Alitalia, effectively being absorbed by the Italian state and its taxpayers. This process drew considerable criticism globally. A US diplomatic cable disclosed by WikiLeaks in 2011 offered this blunt assessment.
Under the guise of a rather quaint and distinctly un-EU desire to maintain the Italianness of the company, a group of wealthy Berlusconi cronies was enticed into taking over the healthy portions of Alitalia, leaving its debts to the Italian taxpayers. The rules of bankruptcy were changed in the middle of the game to meet the government's needs.
This new Alitalia, shall we call it Alitalia 2.0, launched in January of 2009, but it faced much of the same issues that plagued Alitalia 1.0. It accumulated upwards of €1 billion in losses within its first 4 years of operation. By 2013, Alitalia was once again teetering on the brink of bankruptcy. They received another government bailout, but this only just kept them solvent. A more significant shift occurred a year later when Etihad Airways acquired a 49% stake in the airline. This was part of Etihad's equity alliance plan, spearheaded by then CEO James Hogan. And sorry, I just have to mention this, but oh boy, is this something that I want to dig into one day. Hogan seemingly had a very successful career growing Etihad into a global carrier, and then seemingly burned it all down with these terrible investments. He's now left Etihad and, well, working with our favorite airline. But anyway, this investment into Alitalia by Etihad led to major rebranding and restructuring, and an ambitious plan to return Alitalia to profitability by 2017, and, well, make it Europe's sexiest carrier. Of course, 2017 rolled around and they were still losing hundreds of millions of euros every year. Etihad withdrew their financial support and the airline was placed into administration. To keep the airline operating during the administration process, the Italian government granted 2 loans totaling 900 million euros. The EU scrutinized these, declaring them illegal state aid, and ordered Italy to recover the 900 million, including interest. The administrators embarked on a search for new investors or a potential acquirer, and this was a multi-year process spanning from 2017 through to 2020. Whilst many deals were explored, none materialized into a concrete sale. And due to the pandemic, the Italian government just decided to take on full control, effectively renationalizing the airline in March of 2020. By October of 2020, they'd signed a decree authorizing the reorganization of the airline into the ITA Airways we know today. Well, not quite. The European Commission, the EU, once again had a say here. In order to approve the creation of the new ITA Airways, they required that the new airline must not be a continuation of the old Alitalia. They insisted on economic discontinuity between the two entities to ensure that ITA would not inherit Alitalia's massive debts or benefit from the past, any of those loans, as they deemed them illegal state aid. To mandate a clean break, ITA was required to operate with a significantly smaller fleet and a reduced workforce. They could only acquire Alitalia assets such as the brand name, landing slots, and aircraft through open and transparent public tenders, paying fair market prices. They were also barred from acquiring certain parts of Alitalia, including its frequent flyer program and parts of the ground handling and maintenance businesses. Alitalia ceased all operations on October 14th, 2021, and on the following day, October 15th, ITA officially launched their services. ITA was genuinely only a new airline. They did acquire the Alitalia brand and have used it very subtly on some of their aircraft. But they operate a much smaller fleet and only had a workforce of around 3,000 compared to Alitalia's 11,000 employees at the time of its closure. The mission of ITA was also different this time round. They were attempting to establish themselves as the new flag carrier, but from the outset, the Italian government made it clear that they were only temporarily wanting to own the airline. They wanted to sell it off fairly quickly. With a modern, efficient fleet of purely Airbus planes, ITA has completed the first part of that mission, becoming a strong flag carrier for Italy. And over the past 2 years, they've also ticked off at least some of that second part of the plan. We'll get to that later. Let's first get on this flight to Rome.
She took my whole boarding pass. I'm only left with this. Bruh. I want the boarding pass, not this bit. This is well and truly the best seat I've ever had on a narrow body jet. It might be one of the best business class seats I've ever been on, hands down, to be honest. This is really quite something. That was weird. There we go.
And in safety procedures and equipment of this aircraft.
This is such a spacious seat, and we're like on a narrow body plane. Kind of ridiculous. All of this like floor space here. The ottoman thing is humongous. There's a pretty big table here too. We could fit like a big laptop on here. And then in terms of storage, I was thinking, oh, there's not going to be a whole lot of storage because there's nothing sort of opens up down here on the ottoman. But wait, look at this. Firstly, there's a little slot where your drink bottle goes. But then, are you ready? Are you ready for this? This thing is humongous. And it just closes away like that. Brilliant. This seat is brilliant. I'm guessing the tray table comes out of here. That's a good sized tray table. You can easily fit a 16-inch MacBook on here. We've even got a delightful coat rack. Look at that. Incredible. Sounds like they're doing food straight away. So are we hitting a middle of the night breakfast? Like a 4:49 a.m. breakfast? I might just not drink coffee here. I kind of wouldn't mind a bit of a nap. I only really got 4 hours of sleep last night, so nice to nap for an hour or two, but it sounds like they're prepping food. I can hear plates. I can hear cutlery. I'm waiting for the seatbelt sign to go off. I need to go to the toilet.
Pee your pants.
In the front lab right now. Hope the lighting's not too bad. Very standard. Maybe a little, could be a tad bigger than they usually are, especially in an A320 or A321 in this case. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that. We've just got like an extra little bit of floor space, which just makes it, I guess, a little bit less tight than usual. So no special sprays or moisturizers going on here. Just some hand soap. That's about it. They are serving food right now, so that is rapid. I guess it kind of makes sense. Then you can eat and then nap again. I don't know. It's a 5 a.m. breakfast, which I guess is getting more into the realm of a breakfast time for some people. Thank you. Mango yogurt? Is that all I get? Is this punishment for being a naughty boy?
Sorry. Oh, sorry.
This looks very good. Got like egg, sausage, and hash brown, mushroom, tomato, pastry and bread, a little bit of fruit, and I guess jam and butter and the yogurt, orange juice. Pretty good. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Got some more bread as well. There was no options for breakfast. This was just brought, but I guess I'm not a vegetarian, so I don't mind. There's so much space in this suite that there's a button to move you forward a bit. It's kind of nice. The sausage is kind of just bland sausage.
That's what she said.
The hash brown's just a hash brown. Mushrooms are mushrooms. But the omelette is delicious. It's like a tomato and maybe there's some sort of cheese in there. Not overcooked, just impressive. Okay, I read the yogurt wrong. It's actually yogurt magro bianco. It's just plain yogurt. That was pretty decent considering.
Considering what?
Yeah, this is ridiculously good. We've got 2 hours and 25 minutes to Rome. I'm going to try and nap for an hour. Okay, good morning again. This is a very good bed. Tons of just space to stretch out. There's just so much leg room. The blanket was good. It wasn't very cold in here anyway, but this pillow is horrendous. It is as flat as a pancake. Just look at it. Anyway, that could definitely be improved. Otherwise, incredible bed. I think I was able to sleep for about an hour and a half. Yeah, we've started at a stand now. We've got 29 minutes until we get to Rome, so...
I hope you have 5 minutes to be patient because we need to unload before you the aft cargo because it's for stability of the aircraft.
Boarding's in 25 minutes. Let's go to the ITA lounge. I've had my nap. It's now time to have, too many coffees.
So I had a 1 hour and 25 minute layover between these two flights. When I booked this ticket, it was either that or an 8-hour option. So obviously I chose this one. It is doable. You do have to swap terminals. You do have to go through immigration because you're entering the Schengen zone. So I didn't have a ton of time to explore the airport or check out the lounge. I did briefly stop by for some breakfast and some coffee.
My flight is boarding, but this is a very pretty lounge. It was really quite warm in there. In terms of actual food and drinks, it was, I think drinks it was good, but food was not incredible. But it was just such a calming, well-designed place. I don't know, it was very Italian, wasn't it? We got the drink bottle with the cap that stays on. Like a graveyard of Alitalia. Here's our plane today.
I guess I haven't really mentioned the plane so far. We're flying on one of ITA's 7 A321 Neos. These are fitted out in a fairly premium heavy configuration and have some of the best business class seats that I've ever seen on a narrow body jet. These are mostly used on medium haul flights to the Middle East, but occasionally are used on intra-Europe flights as well. That's what we've got today on this second flight to Paris. This is almost definitely the nicest intra-Europe business class seat out there.
Now, obviously, we're getting deja vu here. It's exactly the same seat. It's 5K too. I'm in exactly the same seat. But no, what did we not touch on? Well, tech. Now, if we look at the screen here, one thing that I just noticed is this Bluetooth button. If I start pairing my headphones, I wasn't 100% sure if it had that. It does. Incredible. Otherwise, we've got Wi-Fi on the plane. It costs a bunch of money. You can get free messaging, and I think there's some deals if you are part of ITA's loyalty program. But one thing quickly that I want to mention, okay, I'm not going to tell you that much about the actual collection because who cares, and it changes all the time, right? They do, of course, have Crazy Stupid Love. That is a must on every plane. And I guess secondly about that, when you watch the movies, there is a quick ad, but it's only an 18-second ad, so that's not too bad. You can't skip it, which is a little bit annoying, but 18 seconds isn't the end of the world for me.
That's not what she said.
But then once you actually get into the movies, this is like the same back-end system that I'm pretty sure like Philippine Airlines has, because you can do this. You can skip to any point in the movie and it loads instantly. I love this. It's like super responsive, super nice. Otherwise, I won't really talk about the other stuff. They got games, they got music. I'd say they've got a good selection of movies, and the TV shows is like a bit weak. Overall, they've done a pretty good job with the screen tech. Secondly, power. There's like a standard outlet down here. And then we've also got USB-A and USB-C. The USB-C is at least fast charging. It says 60 watt on it. USB-C and USB-A is good to see. We've got basically 7.5 watt charging on the A port. That's fine. We've definitely seen a lot worse on other airlines. And now the C. So on the USB-C, we're getting 24 watt, 25 watt, which is I'm pretty sure basically as fast as an iPhone will charge. It says 60 watt on it. I would believe that it is actually 60 watt. So if you hook up a laptop or something, you could charge your laptop off that port. All round, pretty great tech on ITA Airways, at least this particular plane and seat. So I'm a big fan, at least of this experience. Quick mention here too, this seatbelt extends so much, you will never need a belt extender. You could be absolutely huge. You probably couldn't even fit through the gap between the doors and the seatbelt will still work for you. Massive, one of the biggest I think I've ever seen.
That's what she said.
We got third breakfast I think going on here. I think this is like a quiche, egg thing, croissant, some fruit, black coffee. Those are pretty good. The coffee did taste like literal dirt though, which is interesting considering we're in Italy. But anyway.
Let's get back to the ITA story here. In 2023, Lufthansa entered an agreement to purchase a 41% stake of ITA for €325 million. The rest of the airline is still owned by the Italian government, but as part of the deal, Lufthansa has the option to purchase the rest of the company from 2025 onwards, subject to specific performance metrics. Basically, Lufthansa is going to buy this thing. Of course, the European Commission had their say in all of this, and this deal includes conditions to ensure that the tie-up won't unduly reduce competition. But of course, they recognize how Alitalia was an absolute basket case and how an acquisition is likely necessary for Italy's flag carrier. The integration between ITA and Lufthansa has already begun, with Jörg Ebner, an experienced Lufthansa executive, being appointed CEO of ITA. They've also started extensive code sharing and integration of ITA's frequent flyer program Volair with Lufthansa's Miles and More program. I think this acquisition is unfortunately required for ITA. Italy just can't seem to run a national airline profitably, and Lufthansa will most likely turn them into a profitable operation. But here's the thing, apart from the money, I just don't think this will be good for ITA's employees or their future customers. Lufthansa, under their current CEO, Carsten Spohr, has a history of poor industrial relations. They've engaged in a practice of creating new subsidiary airlines to allegedly circumvent union agreements, all in a move to lower their operating costs. This has led to widespread strike actions involving various employee groups. Now, you could take the view that this is all a necessary evil in order to compete against the numerous low-cost carriers that operate throughout Europe. And look, I would somewhat agree with you here, but one of Alitalia's major issues was their high cost base. I would not be surprised if we start to see strikes and disruptions once Lufthansa starts to really take control of ITA. The other side of this is the passenger experience. I just don't think Lufthansa is a very premium airline. If you've seen my Allegris video, I'll link it up there, they're just not that good. And that's if we ignore all of the rollout issues, which kind of indicates that Lufthansa's management could be a bit of a mess. So look, ITA probably needed to join one of the European big three, but I just don't think Lufthansa was the best choice, and I really don't see them being a premium carrier in the next 5 or 10 years. Which is a shame. This A321 is incredible seats, and I don't really mention it in here, but the service was really good too. All of the flight attendants were lovely.
One sort of noticeable thing about this seat is a lot of it's made out of metal. That panel's made out of metal. This bit up here is made out of metal. This panel here is all made out of metal. I'm pretty sure it's aluminium because it is not magnetic. These bits down here are made out of metal. It's just way more metal than I thought it would be. I used to do some manufacturing stuff, and it wouldn't surprise me if airline seats are one of those things where it probably actually doesn't make that much sense to do injection molding plastic for everything, because the quantities of especially business class seats won't be that high, and so your part cost on aluminium is probably similar to injection molded plastic. And there's all the weight versus strength. I don't really know. I guess if it's semi-supporting structure, these could almost be like an exoskeleton thing, so they don't have a frame inside maybe, or it's a lighter frame inside because they're able to bear more of the load on the outside. I don't know. I just haven't seen a seat like this before that has this much sort of metal. It's like powder coated aluminium or something. So anyway, this is not Monroe Live. Just an observation for you. If anyone knows anything in the seat manufacturing game, that's a tour I would love to do one day. Touring a seat manufacturing plant. If anybody knows any connects at any of those companies, please let me know. I am willing to fly halfway around the world for that. Also, the quick charging, just for reference. When we got on the plane, my phone was at like 40%, 45%. We've been in the air for about an hour and it's now at 92%. So fast charging, it's really, really good and it's super handy on a short flight like this. You can actually get a pretty good charge in. All right, I'm right down the back now in the rearmost lab. They've got 3 back here. This is a very compact toilet. I don't know if you can tell, it is very tiny in here. And you can kind of see the bin is over there. The basin is tiny. That's my hand for comparison. Coming into land in Paris soon.
Devono essere spenti e correttamente riposti.
Now, finally, let's jump back to Cairo Airport and quickly talk about cheap fares. I'm not going to pretend to understand the wild and wonderful world of airfare pricing, but if you want to snag a deal on a business or first class seat, Cairo is one of the cities you should look at. For some reason, premium tickets are, well, not cheap, but somewhat affordable if you start your trip in Cairo. Let's just look at an example. If you wanted to fly to LA on British Airways from Cairo in business class on the 22nd of October, it'll cost you just under $1,600 USD. This rather obviously includes a flight from Cairo to London and then London to LA. That London to LA flight booked just by itself would be almost double, coming in at just under $3,000 USD. Likewise, Cairo to Melbourne, Australia in business class comes in at around $1,700 USD with a convoluted routing via Bahrain and Abu Dhabi. But just that Abu Dhabi to Melbourne leg, if you were to just book that separately, it would come in at just over $6,800 USD. There are a few cities around the world that this can work for, with Cairo being one of the more popular options. Finally, here, my ticket from Cairo to Paris with that stop in Rome in business class was about 525 Australian dollars. I wanted to try ITA. It was a good deal and a pretty great time too. I hope you all enjoyed that video. I hope I didn't rant on too much about Alitalia. If you've made it this far, go follow me on Instagram here. Also, go follow me on LinkedIn. I'm semi-ironically trying to become a LinkedIn influencer. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.
Simon? Is that Simon?
What's Simon?
That was hardly priority. But we got there in the end.